Hey guys, Dave with First Place Auto Parts. You know, when I built my 56 Chevy here, I built it to drive. But the reality is it's getting more and more expensive, not only to drive this car, but also my daily driver. Literally, I just put $10 of gas in this thing, a 93 octane fuel. It cost me over $52. And in today's video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at some tips and tricks that'll help you get more fuel economy and more miles per gallon out of your classic American muscle ride, whether it's a car or truck, or even some things that'll apply to your daily drive or your late model vehicle. So guys, stay tuned to today's video. We're gonna save you a couple of bucks and show you how to eke out a couple of more miles per gallon in your ride. Now the reality is that most of your muscle cars, look, they were never designed to be fuel sippers. They're just not gonna get great fuel economy. But what we can do is we can eke out a few more miles per gallon by doing some simple tips and tricks, which will join together to make a difference in what kind of fuel economy you get out of your classic ride. Look, an efficient engine is a good running engine. And whether you want to make horsepower or fuel economy, this engine has got to be at its peak efficiency. We're going to start at the top of this engine, for example. Look, 2 carburetors on a tunnel ram, never be super efficient, but the tune-up has a lot to do with how efficient it is. Don't be afraid to get a vacuum gauge and to tweak your air-fuel mixture screws. Look, a good clean idle, especially with cars that do not have oxygen sensors, anything carbureted, for example, it's critically important when it comes to fuel economy and also idle quality to make sure that your idle circuit is tuned properly. And a vacuum gauge, it's going to help you out there, guys. Look, these air cleaners, they're not exactly the pearly whites they once were. I've got a new air cleaner right here. This is a larger 14-inch element, but you get the idea. You can see how white this element is. It's clean, it's brand new, and paper filters, they do a good job of filtering and a great job of airflow. This car is definitely due for a set of new air cleaners. These things, and while they're very small because of the hood clearance, they're also choking off airflow, and why that's important, makes the fuel mixture richer than what it should be. Carbureted cars cannot adjust their fuel mixture like a fuel-injected car can, or a fuel-injected car that has oxygen sensors and a computer. So we want to make sure we have clean air cleaners. The other thing on this car is you want to make sure that your fan is as efficient as possible as well. Look, an engine-driven fan at full throttle at wide open RPMs, say around 3,500 to 5,000 RPMs, it takes a lot of power to turn a fan. In this case, I don't have enough room for a clutch-driven fan, which would be a better option than what I have, but what I have is a fan mounted directly to the pulley. Now, what I'm going to convert my engine-driven fan to is a set of these brand new electric, really efficient electric fans that, yes, they do take a little more power to turn the alternator, but the reality is they're very efficient. They allow the engine to warm up sooner, which allows the engine to reach maximum efficiency quicker because these fans don't turn on until the thermostat tells them, the thermostatically controlled. So we're going to do air cleaners on this car. We're going to do electric fans on this car. And you also want to make sure that you check your timing. Make sure that it's set where the engine runs best, which isn't always the factory setting, depending on what modifications you've done to your car. Make sure your coil burns nice and hot. This one has an aftermarket coil that puts out a lot of juice. So I know that when my fuel mixture is right and my air cleaners are clean, that the combustion process is as efficient as it can be. Look, these simple modifications, air cleaners, and also this engine-driven fan, replacing it with electric, this can add up to 1 to 2 miles per gallon. And again, while it doesn't sound like a lot, it adds up in the long run with the other things that we're going to do. And we're going to take a look at those things now. And much like the electric fan conversion, which frees up horsepower, look, freeing up horsepower doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hurt miles per gallon. As a matter of fact, the engine will work easier, and that means it does translate into more miles per gallon, but that is going to a lighter viscosity engine oil like the 5W30 that I have here. Traditionally, I've run 15W40 in my car, and by going to a 10W30, I've been able to free up the engine in regards to the amount of horsepower it takes to turn the oil pump. Look, if you've ever pre-lubed an engine, whether you had one rebuilt and you were putting it in your car, or you installed a new camshaft, it's ideal to pre-lube the engine. And typically what you do is use a drill. It's with an attachment that goes down to the oil pump's drive shaft. You realize how much horsepower it takes to sustain 35 to 60 psi of oil pressure. The oil viscosity, it has a lot to do with that because it works with the engine's tolerances to create the pressure, its flow, and its volume. But one of the things that you can help reduce that horsepower requirement is go to a lighter viscosity oil. Look, if your engine tolerances will allow it, go to a lighter viscosity. It'll free your engine up, it'll free up horsepower, it'll run easier, which also is going to translate into more miles per gallon. And the last two things while we're under the hood of this car, and one of the things that'll help you benefit under the hood of your car, is when you're doing your tune-up and your air cleaners and you're checking your timing, make sure you put a new set of spark plugs in there. Look, modern day spark plugs with the radiant tips, they'll go 100,000 miles, no problem, but they have high energy ignitions and a very clean burning, a very accurate fuel injection system. If you have carburetors on your car, I guarantee you that your spark plugs are good for roughly maybe 25 to 30,000 miles. Not only will the gaps get wider, which makes it harder for the ignition to actually fire the actual spark plug, but they'll start to get coated with carbon. And carbon ultimately breaks down the efficiency of a spark plug. So if you have to think of the engine, increasing the efficiency and increasing miles per gallon is an overall package. The engine is a unit, it's an air pump, but it has a lot of things that helps it get air in and out and light that fuel mixture. And new spark plugs are absolutely going to be part of your recipe for getting more miles per gallon out of your carbureted vehicle. And the final component under the hood that we want to pay attention to is the carburetor. Look, make sure your idle is set correctly. And the reason that is, on the primary side of a carburetor, there's a slot in here called a transition slot. And it's right here at the front of the primary butterflies. And what that does is it allows air and fuel to be drawn through the idle circuit on your carburetor when your throttle bays are shut. If you have too much idle or you have to use this adjustment screw too much and you open these throttle plates, what you do is you uncover these transition circuits and now you start to draw fuel from the main jets. And if you're drawing fuel from the main jets at idle, look, you're burning too much fuel and your problem's somewhere else. If you're idle, if it has to be high because you have to dial in more adjustment on your carburetor's idle screw, make sure you take a double check of your timing. Like I had said earlier, chances are it may be retarded. Now look, I get the big camshafts that require the 1,000 RPMs, but the reality is there are ways, if you have to uncover this idle circuit or this transition slot, there are ways that you can increase the airflow like I've done here with this one. You can see there's two holes drilled into the primary blades. It allowed more air to bleed through without uncovering the idle circuits or the transition slots. So make sure that your idle is set appropriately, and if it's not, if it's set really high because of the idle screw, make sure you back that idle screw down and figure out a way to get that idle back up, either through timing or doing some slight modifications to your butterflies that can make that happen as well. So now we're done under the hood. You've got your idle set, you've got your fuel mixture set, you've freed up the engine with lighter weight oil, maybe a conversion over to an electric fan, you've put new spark plugs in, and you've checked your timing. There's only two more things that we can do to this old rig to make it get better fuel miles per gallon, and these two things, they apply to your late model vehicle as well. And look, I know you know this one, but not many of us are good at actually following through with this one, and that is make sure that you have the proper air pressure in your tires. Because if you don't have the proper air pressure, look, the effects on fuel economy may be more than you know. The average tire holds roughly 32 psi. For every 1 pound that your tire is low, you lose up to 3% of a fuel economy that you would get from a fully inflated tire. Now on a 32 psi tire, if it's 4 pounds low, which isn't uncommon nowadays, you could be losing up to 2.5 miles per gallon if you extrapolate that over all 4 tires being low. So guys, make sure you check the air pressure in your tires. Don't be tempted to overinflate it. Check the inside of your door frame. When you open your door, it'll be a little sticker in there that'll tell you on your late model vehicles what that should be at. Don't just rely on your low pressure tire sensors. Like those things only tell you when your tire is going flat. They don't tell you necessarily when the air pressure is low, and use a good quality air gauge. But make sure you check that. The air pressure will vary widely from the summer to the winter months, and that's because of the moisture in the air. That's why nitrogen was so popular back a couple of years ago as refill for tires. The reality is nitrogen's a great idea, has very little water content in it, so it expands very slowly. But once you hit that thing with a standard air pressure or air chuck from an air hose, you automatically have added more moisture to that mixture. I expect you'll see nitrogen kind of come back into vogue, especially with the fuel economy the way it is, or the prices of gas going the way they are. But for right now, what we need to do is we need to make sure we check our tires, check all 4, not only for safety, but also for fuel economy. Because look, if we got back 2.5 miles per gallon on the tires, we got back roughly 1 to 2 miles per gallon, making sure that we've tuned up the engine and it's running cleanly and the air cleaner's clean. We've added almost 3 to 4 miles per gallon there, and that's substantial. So guys, make sure you check your air pressure. And there's one more thing that you can do to increase the fuel economy of your classic American muscle car or your late model vehicle. And the last thing that you can do to improve the economy of your classic American muscle car or truck or even your daily driver is essentially how you drive your vehicle. Look, in this case, it's the loose nut behind the wheel, but the reality is how you drive will dictate a lot on what kind of fuel economy you get. Are you quick from stoplight to stoplight? Is it a drag race to every stoplight for you? If it is, you're using a ton of fuel. The worst fuel economy comes from when you're just starting off in a vehicle. Some of your late model stuff, take a look at your fuel indicator, your fuel economy indicator, and watch that thing when you come to an idle, but when you go to take off, that thing tanks. So if you can time your lights or just start off a little bit smoother, you can do a lot to add fuel economy. The other thing is with carbureted vehicles, every time you hit that accelerator pump pedal, there's a pump shot on that carburetor. It's dumping raw fuel into that thing to cover up the hole before it gets to the main jet. So how you activate the throttle in your carbureted vehicle can have a lot to do with fuel economy and how much fuel it uses. The other thing is, are you steady when you drive? Are you constantly on the gas and on the brakes? Look, learn how to coast a little bit to a stop. All these things can add up a lot. Look, between the tires and the modifications and the tune-up under the engine, we can add up to almost 5 or 6 miles per gallon. If you learn how to drive and drive more economically and maybe not so aggressively, you can easily add another 1 or 2 miles per gallon there as well. Look, guys, this is actually real fuel economy that will make a difference. If you're already at optimum, everything, your tire pressure and everything else is good, great, good for you. You've done a good job. You're getting the most out of your vehicle that you can. But if it's not, consider doing some of these tips and you'll notice a difference in your fuel economy for your classic American muscle car or truck, even your late model ride as well. Guys, I appreciate you watching this video. Until next time, keep the hammer down, keep it between the guardrails.